Hello to everyone catching us in the VOD. If you would like to jump ahead to the discussion, skip ahead about 3 minutes, and we'll be rolling here. Just getting the last bit set up. Should be quick. Hello to everyone joining us. We're going to get going here in just a little bit. Feel free to kick back and relax while we get set up. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dear Bungie, a discussion slash podcast where we go ahead and introduce our guest here, which today we have Shadow Destiny.
Hello. Thank you for having me on this discussion slash podcast.
This is, as you can tell, very kind of loose. The goal here is to just talk, to, pick each other's brains. I've got a couple bullet points and discussion points from our community as well as from myself that we're going to discuss here today. But the general idea is that we're just going to talk some bullet points in these ideas in a way that includes the audience about some broader topics within Destiny, with hopefully the goal of bringing in some voices that can help shed some light on the bigger picture as a whole. Today's topic of discussion is discussing if the PvP community was let down, if we've failed, or if Bungie has failed the PvP community. Moreover, is PvP as a whole going the way of Gambit? There's lots of stuff I'd like to talk about today, as well as discussing things, talking about what happens when Destiny is long gone. Because, we can only be here for so long. Destiny does have a lifespan eventually. I'm sure Bungie's not going to, completely support this thing for years on end. It will have some future point where it stops being a thing, even if that's years and years down the line. And what happens to content creators then? So we're going to go over all this here. I do apologize if I'm a little out of sorts. I'm feeling a little under the weather. It feels like the start of something. Hopefully it doesn't end up being anything serious. So just a little warning here. All live streams lately here. I'm here for it. Hell yeah. All right. So how you feeling? How you feeling, Shadow? You feeling pretty good?
Good, yeah. Thanks for the intro and the explanation. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, just discussing the game and chilling and chatting about whatever it is you have on your bullet points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's get the big broad discussion here onto the table. Is D2 dying? Shadow, what are your thoughts? Is Destiny dying?
I think it really depends on your definition of dying, but I'd say not. I'm definitely on the leaning towards the side of no, but yeah, like I said, it depends on your definition and your stance, and also it's like dying. Does that mean a year down the line? Because yeah, I'm not really sure what our 1 year outlook is. I think in the past we've always been much more certain, where it's like, oh, okay, well, we have Beyond Light, and then we have Witch Queen, and then we have Livefall, and then we have Final Shape. Like in the past, we've known very far into the future that the game is going to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, we do not have that. We have, like I said, about a year. Then after that, we really have no clue what's going to happen, and that's kind of scary as a player and especially as a creator.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, in 1 year's time, I think things could look very different, either for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I tend to agree. I like obviously it's good content to say Destiny is dying and so on and so forth, right? But
Good clickbait.
yeah, it's good clickbait. It's good discussion because it's like it's a discussion. It's a fair topic to talk about, right? But realistically, and I think the vast majority of the audience would agree that it's not dead. It's definitely not dead. Maybe
Hmm.
dying, perhaps, but we at least have final shape, right? And the death of a game, like, how do you truly define a game being like dead? Right? Do you
Right.
consider
Yeah.
a game being dead as in like there are 0 players online or effectively 0 players online? Is there a certain number of players that has to be online for it to be considered dead? Is it no longer receiving updates? If we go the no longer receiving updates route, Team Fortress 2, which is a game that consistently tops 10 on Steam charts, is a very dead game that has a lot of players, right? So,
That's so funny. I was thinking that exact same example. I was like, yeah, I mean, TF2 is still very popular, even though it doesn't get updated really at all in like years and years and years. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think personally for me, I just define it, I define like the death of a game as like a catastrophic, massive decline in its player base.
Mm,
So like to the point of it being completely unsustainable to develop, and also to the point where it feels like you can't find anyone to play it with you because there's nobody playing. I feel like, yeah, like I think Destiny 1 is dead,
yeah,
like
right.
stuff like that.
Right. It's like kind of from the player's point of view and from the developer's point of view, it doesn't make sense to invest further into it, right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's I would define it. Now the concern is like we talk about this stuff and we generally say, no, the stream just die. Gosh darn it, it does that every now and then. I'm sorry guys, it's completely outside my control. Hopefully everybody comes back. I give you a second to come on back. Here, let me go to my favorite screen. I love this screen so much.
What is it? The stream died BRB moment?
Basically, the shit's fucked screen.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. All right, we back. We back. Okay. Hopefully, I think we're back. I think we're back. Anyway, so we obviously can say, broadly speaking, no, Destiny's not dying. Destiny's definitely not dead, right?
Yep.
But is it on its way out? We've seen a slow drop in players as time has gone on, right? With players coming back during the like I am Strand. What is the name of that expansion? Shadow,
Lightfall?
help me. Lightfall. Oh my gosh, my brain is turned off. I'm so sorry. Lightfall. Like we saw a whole bunch of players come back with Lightfall, and that felt like, oh yeah, Destiny's like back on track. At least that's what it felt like from somebody who's been playing the game forever. It's like Destiny's back on track, at least starting and getting into it, right? It's like, okay, we got a brand new darkness subclass, a whole new area, new raid, new stuff, and so on and so forth. And we saw how that ended. There was a honeymoon phase for, I would say, about 3 months, and then it dropped off the face of the planet. It just dropped off a cliff, right? And we haven't really seen it kind of like pull back up on the reins. I don't know if your opinion is any different on that, but it seems like it's just like ever since then, it's just continued to kind of dip further and further down, and it's sort of like treading water right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to be an optimist, and I think that the game could be headed in a good direction. Like I said, in 1 year's time, we really have no clue what it's going to be like.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I think there's definitely potential to turn things around, but as it is, I think things are going to be relatively slow until final shape. I think final shape is going to be, a very high moment, if not an all-time high moment, because it's the conclusion of the whole saga that like 100 million people have played at some point or another. So
I
I
mean,
think it's definitely going to be crazy.
yeah, it kind of has to be, right? Because like we're
Right.
having such a large delay, and coming off of the player sentiment being very low. Like, even just talking about things like the microtransaction video that Astrocross put out, the layoffs, a lot of the things that we felt like we were hoping to see coming out of Lightfall, or Lightfall maybe not living to expectations after the kind of like that honeymoon phase was over and so forth, right? Like it feels like it kind of has to hit this high, this new high. It has to be what I've seen people just call it, is like it has to be the Forsaken 2.0. It has to be better Forsaken, right? It has to bring something new to the game, so big, so grand that it knocks our socks off completely, right? Do you tend to agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I want it to be as good as it possibly can be, and I think with the delay that they put in, and considering that it already, way months ago it got good but not great reviews internally, like, I think if you have something that's pretty good and you take, several extra months to kind of polish it and improve it, hopefully that gives you a pretty good result. I mean, I know that, these extra months are not the longest amount of time in terms of how long it takes to make a game. So it's not like it's going to completely redo the whole product, but the sense that I got was that everyone working on the expansion is kind of doubling down and trying to make it as good as they possibly can, and I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat for sure. Now let's talk about something a little bit more near and dear to our hearts. Let's talk about Crucible. Because
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you, but from what I've seen as somebody who covers kind of a vast array of topics within Destiny, and looking at other people and what they upload and so on and so forth, it seems like the sentiment about Crucible has declined pretty sharply as well. Like Crucible is always, at least in terms of like online interaction, Crucible has always felt like a dirty thing. Like either you love it or you hate it, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of in between. You know what I mean? Like you'll either get people who say, oh yeah, Crucible's fun or whatever, and they're like me who do nothing but Crucible, or they're the type that will, like, if you bring up Crucible, it's like you just talked about their mom dying. It's like it is, especially if you get them, if you put like some kind of quest or something where they have to go play it. It is like pulling teeth. And I'm wondering, because I'm looking around at the landscape for content creation specifically, I'm wondering if the sentiment about Crucible has either just become so niche, or it's become so stale, or there's just not a good enough reason for casual players to jump back in. I'm wondering if Crucible as a section of the game, or as a content creation space, is also going the similar way of, it's maybe not dead right now, but maybe it's dying and we don't know till the final shape, or something along those lines, and maybe more so, maybe more amplified. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's clear that Crucible was I don't know what's the right word, not the focus for an extremely long period of time, and people with the only updates to Crucible being sandbox updates for years, people understandably lost some of their interest in it, and people who were super dedicated to PvP left. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but I'd guess a sizable chunk of PvP enthusiasts realized after a certain number of years that, well, if this isn't the focus of the game's developer and I'm not satisfied with where it is, then maybe I should look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's not the case for either of us or content creation in general, but I'm I have some interesting. I don't know. I'm optimistic about what the PvP team is doing. I think they've done some solid changes so far, and they probably will make some even better ones coming up. And I feel like we're with the PvP map pack coming. That's the largest infusion of maps we've seen in years. So yeah, I'm excited for what they plan to do, and I think there's potential for some big improvements. But yeah, PvP in general is, I think it still definitely needs some work to get it to a good spot.
Okay. Do you feel like, well, you kind of touched on it here, but just to kind of get this a little bit clearer, just more out of my own personal curiosity, do you feel like the feelings of apathy or just disdain, or whatever you'd like to call it, is more amplified in Crucible nowadays? Do you feel like that's like, take whatever bad blood that is brewing within the Destiny community, right? Because obviously, we talked about that a little bit. Do you feel like that's more so in Crucible, or do you think Crucible was already just a subset of a subset, so we're just kind of it's scaling the same way? You know what I mean? Is it like, are we seeing like the same ratio and it's just smaller, so it seems smaller, or is it literally that it's accelerating faster? That apathy feeling, is it accelerating faster? What do you think?
I'm not really sure. For me personally, it's just the game in general is all about the same. I think for the broad community, I'm not really sure.
Okay. Interesting. I'm kind of seeing what's happening in chat here. I still enjoy PvP. Could definitely get some improvements, though, for some players of all skill levels. Yeah. Yeah, I
Hmm.
definitely think the casuals have less of a reason to enjoy Crucible, right? Because like us, you and I that have been playing Crucible forever, or other players of the sort, like we already have our reason. It's because we like Crucible, we like Destiny Crucible, right? But for new players or maybe players who are just enjoying PvE, maybe less of a reason. So I'd say from S. Collins, I think Comper Trials needs a major change, having two very competitive modes and a load of casual modes. Either it's super sweaty or lacks any feeling of competitive spirit. I think that was the idea behind SBMM. SBMM was intended to sort of bridge the gap and to make it a little bit more competitive-ish in the casual space, but as we've seen that is maybe not the best choice for a casual game mode, right? Anyway, shall we move on?
Sure.
All right. Any other? Want to make sure you don't have any other thoughts or anything you want to lay on there
No, not
before?
really.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. Why not leave, Shadow? If Destiny is kind of in this weird limbo, if you're, maybe not sure where it's going to happen, or, even if it does last a year, obviously a year does not an entire a retirement make. Why not move to a different game? Why stay here in Crucible or not Crucible, Destiny as your main source of content creation?
Well, I kind of like to play games exclusively. I'm not really the person who dabbles in like 30 games at once or 30 games in a year. I basically only play Destiny, so I don't really have another game that's like, oh yeah, I could just start making content about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that although I know how to make videos, I don't know much about literally any other game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really easy to talk about Destiny when I've played it for such a long time, but I can't just talk about Fortnite, for example, because I've barely ever touched that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it would be a substantial investment to switch over to another game. Just time investment playing the game and learning about it and its community and its history. So there's definitely a big that's a big barrier in between me and switching to something else.
I see.
There's also just the enjoyment factor. Despite all of its, highs and lows, I still like Destiny quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I enjoy making content for it. So, yeah.
Yep. I agree. I'm right there with you. But let me ask you a hypothetical then, because I'm in
Hmm.
the same boat, right? Because I'm thinking about maybe branching out on my second channel a little bit and doing some stuff and whatnot, so on and so forth. And just even approaching that topic has stressed me out so much. Because it's like, man, I feel even before I started content creation for Destiny, I felt competent that I was maybe not an expert, but qualified, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And now, I'm kind of past that Dunning-Kruger curve, right? And now knowing I'm on the other side of things, knowing, oh, actually, I really wasn't that much of an expert. Like I thought I knew stuff, but I kind of didn't. I feel a lot more confident in knowing what I don't know now, right? And now getting in, trying to branch into a new space is scary because it's like, wow, I am more aware. I'm more self-aware of where my shortcomings will be, not are, but will be, getting into a new space or something like this, right? But let's put that aside here for a second, and let's talk about what if, let's say hypothetically, you were super into Fortnite. Let's say you booted up the game one night just because a friend asked you to, and man, you just were on it. You just love Fortnite, right? Like, man, I love this game, and you found yourself playing less and less Destiny. Would you switch your channel, and if not, why?
I still think there would be a knowledge barrier simply because even if I got into it now, there's 6 years of history that I've not been involved in whatsoever.
Okay,
So it would still take me a while to kind of understand it to the point where I felt comfortable covering it.
sure.
Number one. Number two, I would probably not do like some hard pivot where I just immediately abandon Destiny. I'd probably just make a new channel and see how it goes and do both for a while.
Hmm.
If I really was in this hypothetical situation where I absolutely loved Fortnite,
Right.
and played it every day. So yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Okay. And just so the audience knows at home, this is a topic we've discussed before. So I'm pitching questions at him that I know the answer he's going to give me back to, right? This is more just to kind of bring it up to the rest of everybody else, so that everyone's aware. Yeah, I hope you're picking up on that a little bit, Shadow, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So why a second channel and why not on the main channel?
Well, because I mean, think of it like a restaurant. If you go to your favorite restaurant and they serve Thai food, right? They normally serve Thai food. You go to your favorite Thai food place and suddenly they're serving burgers. You're gonna be like, what? So people come to my channel expecting Destiny, and if I suddenly start serving them Fortnite, they're gonna be pissed. So that's why I would start a new channel. It's a
Okay.
different audience, so it makes sense to have a different place to have that type of content.
Yep. I mean, really, what we're talking about here. Have you seen Dado's second channel?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually talked to him about it.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Yeah, because I think that confirms my suspicion. Did you talk to him before the video I'm thinking of came up, or is that after?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because he had a very similar type
Spiel.
speech script, like we were all sharing the same information. We clearly had been passing notes in class, you know what I mean? So like, I bet he's been talking to Shadow. So that confirms that suspicion. That's interesting. So I mean, if you guys haven't seen Dado's video, he basically talks about why he made a second channel and told nobody, and the overall idea is that he needs to have a new audience. He wants to make sure that the audience that comes to this channel is the channel that people are looking for just generic stuff, not specifically Destiny, right? And that's partially why none of us content creators are just like hard pivoting our channels. And even some of us are very skeptical about branching into other stuff. Like you see people like Fallout and Astercross trying other games and with middling success, because it's kind of dangerous. Because if you go to let's say because Fallout put out a video on Pal World, very popular right now, and it's a weird place for him because if that video really, really pops off, it'd be kind of odd from the algorithm's point of view because it's going to be recommending other Destiny content from an audience that just wants Pal World, so that might be a little odd for his audience. It might work, but it's at best, like best case scenario, people watch just that video and then immediately click off and get no other recommendations to his channel, right? Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want the algorithm just to have people watch that video, really like it, suggest more of his content, and nobody click on the content because now the algorithm's now thinking, oh, well, clearly this content isn't good, so it's going to like slowly bring down the rest of this stuff, right? But I'm sure he has his reasons. He's been doing this a lot longer than I have, so that's partially why there's been, and that's why like Imtash years ago, when he pivoted over to Genshin, he hard pivoted. It wasn't like I'll maybe kind of
no going back.
Yeah, and then he's going back. Yeah, well, he did for a little bit, or rather, he brought a second channel up. But yeah, that's
different.
Yeah, if you go for that route, you've got to just commit to it, right? It's got to be a full pivot. So that's might be something that either of us have to face at some future point of pivoting our main channels off into something else, right? Maybe if we just don't plan on ever uploading any more Destiny on this channel ever again, right? But
yeah, if I ever pivot my main channel, it's there's no turning back.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. It's a big commitment. But as Cross has pointed out, maybe bigger and better things, right? Because we did a video talking about sort of the end. Look, the screen works. Sort of the end of what happens if Destiny dies, right? We discussed it. It was more open-ended. There was no script or whatnot. And talked about some things that would happen, and so on and so forth. A lot of the things that we're kind of rehashing here, right? And Cross gave us a very similar sort of thing that we're talking about here, which is that this doesn't necessarily, like the end of Destiny doesn't necessarily have to be the end of your channel, doesn't have to be the end of the content that you make, right? Because a lot of people got their starts in, let's look at Mr. Fruit as actually a great example. Mr. Fruit started with Destiny. Like, he didn't technically start with Destiny, but he really like found his stride with Destiny. It was the first time he really like struck gold, right? He's been doing a lot of other kind of random games here and there, but he started with Destiny and he absolutely struck gold, right? And he did that for quite a while, and then he was able to successfully pivot onto just being more generic. Obviously, this is something I'm interested in talking to you about, Shadow. I feel like back in those days, back when Destiny 1 was still a thing, the YouTube landscape was far different. Far different. And
Night and day.
yeah, night and day different. And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on the difference between YouTube then and now, because I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
I mean, the algorithm has definitely shifted quite a bit since 2014,
Yeah.
but also audiences have shifted, like in the past, audiences really liked content that was like, let's play X game. And it's just the creator uploads them playing some random game and it's really fun. If you start a channel today and your entire content schedule is today I played X game, you're not going to go anywhere unless you're like the most entertaining person who has ever touched the platform. So the audience expectations and the algorithm have both shifted massively in the past decade, which is largely responsible for that shift.
Yeah, and I agree. Like if you tried to be a Markiplier or a Jacksepticeye or a Mr. Fruit nowadays, I don't think you'd go anywhere. Like those audiences and that type of content, I feel like has already been established, right? Like you used the restaurant analogy previously. Like we've already got our Burger King, our McDonald's, our Carl's Jr. or Hardee's if you're on the other side of the U.S. Those have already been established, and trying to come up with another big fast food restaurant is just like a fool's errand, right? And I'm curious because Fruit had a very particular, because I did go through and watch Fruit's big, massive, like, I think it was like 2-hour long video discussing about where he's been and what's going on, because I grew up watching him. So I feel like parasocially responsible in a weird way for where he's at. I know that's obviously not the case, but you know what I mean, right? Like I'm deeply invested in where he's at, because like I feel kind of like that connection with him or so forth. But I'm curious as to where you think the algorithm has shifted now. Shadow, like what do you think it's, because obviously it worked back in the day to do a more let's play personality forward thing. Do you have a feeling of where it's at now?
Well, I think it's not. I think it's much more so the audience than the algorithm. That type of content was just much more popular back in the day. And I mean, it's kind of cliche among YouTube circles to say this, but at the end of the day, like the audience is really just following and catering to what the people want.
Yeah.
So if the people wanted Let's Plays, they would still do really good.
Right.
But evidently, that is not what people want anymore. So it's much more a shift than in the people than it is in the algorithm.
For sure. And where do you think that shift, like, if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But where do you think that's shifting to, out of curiosity?
Well, I mean, all types of different content. I mean, there's just higher effort stuff, like things that have more interesting titles than Let's Play Destiny 2. Like I don't know about you, but if I saw Let's Play Destiny 2 come across my timeline, there's a 0% chance I'm clicking that. And I imagine the same is the case for the majority of Destiny viewers, especially if it's a channel with 2 subscribers that you've never heard of, like no chance you're clicking that. So
no reason. Yeah,
it's just people have adapted to different types of content that they enjoy watching more, and that is just generally phased out over time.
Okay. All right, next one. This is one that I see quite often, and this is just more for us to put it up like a straw man and beat it up. Why not get a real job, Shadow, once this is all said and done? Why not drop content creation and get a quote-unquote real job?
I mean, I like content creation, so that's a reason. I think, I mean, personally, I guess we have talked about this in the past. I think the case is for both of us that we would much rather do content creation than a quote unquote normal job, if it is an option. So as long as it is an option for us and it's, a viable career for us to continue doing this, I think we will both continue doing this because we enjoy it quite a bit. So.
Yeah, and somebody pointed out the answer I would give if somebody asked me something like that. Content creation.
It is a real job.
It is a real job. Yeah, it's not a normal job, but it is very much a real job. Like,
and it's becoming more normal too. That's the thing. Like,
that's
it's becoming
weird.
more and more popular.
Yeah, that's a weird feeling.
It is.
Like, I kind of felt a little special being a quote unquote content creator. What's going on here?
Especially with the advent of short form content, it's pretty hilarious. It's just there's so many channels that have 1 million subs, and it's like you've never heard of them. Just the most like obscure, random channel that you've never heard of, but somehow they have 1 million subscribers from shorts, and they have gotten like 3 long form views in their entire lives. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because it's you don't remember short form content. That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
if I asked you to name the last 10 short form videos you watched, there's no chance you're going to remember even one of them. Like maybe one, but no way you're remembering 10 out of 10. But if
Mm.
I asked you the last 10 long form videos you watched, you probably remember five at least, you
Yeah, it
know?
sticks with
Like,
you more. Hmm.
yeah, long form is just so much more memorable and you form a much deeper relationship with the creator. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Do you feel like what is your feeling on shorts within the advent of YouTube? Do you feel like it's been a good thing, a bad thing, a neutral thing?
I mean, I enjoy watching them sometimes. I think they're you can certainly lose yourself in scrolling for hours on end.
Right.
Personally, I don't really make them, just because I have more fun making long form to begin with. And then also, um, you kind of have to ask yourself at the end of the day, like, why are you making shorts if you are making shorts? You know,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it for views? Is it for subscribers? You know, shorts don't really make any money, so it's not for money.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm not against them. You know, I think they're fine. But I feel like I my time is better spent making long form, and I also enjoy it more. So it's kind of a win-win situation for me. But yeah,
For
maybe
sure.
someday I'll make a few shorts. Just it will never be my main focus.
Yeah, definitely. And like even when we're doing it, the way we do shorts is more of just here's an idea that isn't big enough to fit into a full video, but nevertheless is
Yeah,
something entertaining or whatnot.
yeah.
You know, and
It's a side thing that takes you like an hour to make. It's like, you know, there's no big investment. I can see that
yeah,
working.
exactly. Like hopefully
Hmm.
the goal at least with us for shorts is to have people drive to the bigger, longer form stuff, right? Because
Right,
the
and it
reach
can
of
be that.
shorts, yeah, the reach of shorts is much longer. Let's see here. So I'm seeing a lot of people who are just joining in who are giving us their opinion here. Fail or complete
Hmm.
is a 10-year game goal. Yeah, and we're approaching that. A dead game is when it's hard to find matches. That's somewhat true. That's somewhat true. Because, you know, obviously Destiny being a PvE game, primarily, at least nowadays, finding a match isn't nearly as difficult. So as long as you have 6 players who can play, you technically can do all the content, right? Uh, the way game theory does shorts is mini shorts or is mini theories instead of full theories. Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's kind of how we do stuff too. It's like I'll do conspiracy theories and so on and so forth. Yeah. Anyway, so what's next? What's next? You know, let's say that we're 5 years into the future. Destiny has officially run its course. What's next? You're gonna jump into a new game. You're gonna try to be more variety. What's your goal, Shadow? I'm curious as to where you see yourself because like you know let's be honest, both of us know that Destiny does have a lifespan, right?
Yep.
At least a year.
At some point.
Yeah, at some point though it will run its course. So I'm curious what your thought process is it going to be just kind of like an in the moment thing, play by ear, or is it going to be a little bit more premeditated?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing for me is I still want to be a creator in 5 years.
Yeah, for sure.
That takes precedence over everything. What type of creator is very much up in the air. I
Hmm.
could definitely see myself still being a gaming creator because that's what I've done so far and what I know how to do. But at the same time, I could also see myself becoming a creator in a different niche outside of gaming.
Interesting.
Um, so yeah, I'm not really firmly committed to either. And I would kind of have to cross that bridge when I get to it and do a lot of research and find out a niche that I think I'm really into.
Yeah, somebody shouted out in the chat, hold on to marathon and pray. Yeah, I think a lot of us are hoping the pivot to marathon will be clean, right? It'll be hopefully a low stress thing, right? But we can't bank on that, right? I mean, shoot, we've seen a lot of games nowadays who started out launching and they kind of sucked. They were early access is a very generous way to put it, right? But you know, like for me, the hard thing for me is I love competing against other players, right? For so even if it's not necessarily PvP, some type of competition with other players really drives me, right? And I think that's going to be the hard thing because, like, for example, Pal World, somebody mentioned in the chat, is an interesting game. There's, a lot of fun stuff that can happen there, but it lacks that certain, like, immediate competitiveness that I really seek. And even if it's like it's hard for people to do X thing, like, for example, Enter the Gungeon or roguelikes in general, like, just the concept of it being hard and not very many people beat it is enough to drive me to keep going, right? So for me as a content creator, and for finding a game, because I do think I'll probably be in games because I love games. I don't know about you, Shadow, but I love games. I think games are the coolest thing, and they're a very unique
Absolutely.
medium. Yeah. But it's going to be hard to find that because I feel like that is so rare to get just right, But
Yeah, definitely. And also there's a difference between a game being like personally enjoyable for you and also viable to cover.
yeah, that's
Um,
so true.
like sometimes I dabble in a game and I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then it's like the most viewed video about that game has like 14 views. So it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
well, obviously I couldn't make videos about this.
yeah.
So
And it's always sometimes it's like it's difficult sometimes because it's like, is there just not a market for it, or is it that nobody's come along and done it? You know what I mean? Like there's been
yeah.
games that or ideas that I wouldn't have assumed would have been any that have really had any legs, but somebody came in and they stepped in and they did it, and it ended up being a thing. Like you guys know who Pirate Software is, right? And his whole thing, as he talks on Shorts, that it's just like him playing a game, talking about some game dev experience, and being just generally wise. Like I would never have expect just generally being wise as being a marketable short, but here we are, you know. So, Forcer, welcome to the chat. It's a bit optimistic view but when Destiny dies off, I hope it has the same interest as Bethesda or COD Zombies games. There's channels that have survived off of these games years after support. Yeah, I could see that. And with just the sheer quantity of stuff in Destiny, it's a possibility, right? Like our whole thing with stupid builds, let's say, for example, for PvP, is combining stuff that isn't normally combined together to create unique playstyles or what have you, right? And despite PvP not really receiving any major updates for quite a while, there's still quite a few builds that we haven't done yet, right? So maybe it's a situation like that where just because there's so much stuff there, it has a similar situation. Even Borderlands had a similar thing where just like there's just so many things in the game that it still had a community years after the game was quote unquote dead, right? No more updates and so on and so forth, right? Same with zombies and Bethesda stuff. Or maybe, yeah, like modding would be a thing, right? Like if modding came out tomorrow, if we were able to mod Destiny, even if it was like private stuff, like holy cow, the world of content creation would just open up, right?
Dude, I 100% agree. We are so limited in what we can do as creators in this game because there is like essentially zero creator resources or just creative things that we can do. Like
Yeah.
I have done videos in the past, like the one you participated in last year when we did a bunch of challenges, and it's
Yep.
like those challenges are a reach. Like we really
Yeah.
have to be creative to come up with these things that we can do in the game that are interesting to watch. But imagine if we could build things that would actually be creative and fun to watch, like that's, the bread and butter of why Minecraft has been around for so long because you can just
Build
invent
whatever.
up whatever you want and
Yep.
then you can tell a story, you can create a challenge, you can create a custom type of game mode, there's infinite possibilities.
Yeah, literally infinite. Yeah.
And yeah,
Yep.
Destiny just doesn't work that way, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it really frustrates me that we don't even have like a spectator mode because like the amount of stuff that would open up with the ability to do like a spectator mode in PvP, like I would love for there to be some kind of esports thing, something in Destiny. I know we have sweats, but nobody talks about sweats, right? That's not a thing that's like a dark corner of the Destiny community, right? You don't go there. That's like the dark alley where the dude opens up his trench coat and goes, "Hey kid, want to buy a thorn?" Like that's a whole different beast, and the rules are constantly changing and yada yada yada. It doesn't even have like the Smash Bros treatment of being able to just say, "Yeah, these are a list of stages that are allowed. No items. Go." It's not even that. It is a laundry list of rules to have to follow in order to compete in the thing, and finding somebody who competes in it unless you're already in like a bigger community is difficult. But like having a spectator mode could open up things like an esports theme, even if it was something as simple as like everybody can only use blue gear or whatever it may be. But yeah, realistically, like perfect world in my book is the final shit comes out and Bungie goes, oh hey, by the way, we're adding a forge mode. You know, like create your own maps, or here have some back end logic that you can actually program some stuff with. I would lose, dude, the amount of time I would lose in something like that creating stuff. I love game dev. I love game dev so much, bro. You wouldn't see me. I would be gone.
I think there's about a 0.0% chance of that ever
Yeah, I
happening, which
know.
is really sad. Even though, like I said, I try to be optimistic, but I just don't see it happening, which sucks because it would be great. But
Yeah.
yeah, oh well.
Forcer brings up a good note here. Another thing is morale. Black Ops 3, Fallout 4, Skyrim, etc. ended on good notes where people wanted more and wanted to know more. If Final Shape or whatever flops, we won't have that interest. That's a good point.
Mm,
That's a very good point. Like if people leave with a bitter taste in their mouth, and the thing is, people have been trying to eat Destiny's lunch for a long time, right? Like
that's the sad part. Yeah.
like people have been going at it because it's so successful, and it's successful for a reason, right? And nobody's been able to compete with it. Ironically, mentioning Pal World's the same thing with Pokemon. Nobody's been able to get that slice of pie because nobody's been able to do Pokemon correctly. Temtem was a thing, if you guys remember Temtem, and it did okay. I actually ended up, speaking of Mr. Fruit, watched basically his whole playthrough of that. But it didn't have nearly the gusto that like even the crappy mainline Scarlet and Violet Pokemon games do, right? There is still something that's missing, that magical element that's missing, which is why something like Pal World is quite a shock, because it seems to have that layer of magic that is missing from some of the other clones and copies. And that's why, despite Warframe being a great game, it still hasn't been able to overtake Destiny, because there's still a certain something about Destiny that keeps it competing better than the rest. But as more and more people try, I think somebody's going to succeed, even if it's not necessarily a Destiny clone or somebody who's trying to compete with Destiny specifically. It could be something like Pal World, where it's just another big MMO-like game that people move on to, right? If people are just dissatisfied enough with Destiny, right? So, anywho, if you could, let's open this up to some more hypotheticals here, Shadow. Unless you had a thought on that you wanted to throw in, I didn't want to make sure I talk over you.
No, go for it.
Okay, if you could add something to Destiny with regards to whether it being like a forge mode or something along those lines, right? What would you do?
Yeah, it's a very open-ended and impossible question. I think
Answer the impossible question. Do it.
as a creator, some type of creative thing would be, very nice and very fun and very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get overly specific on like what exactly it would involve, but just being able to create stuff in the universe of Destiny would be really nice because it has infinite depth. There's so much going on in the Destiny universe, and being able to, mess around with stuff and create stuff would be really cool. On the other hand, something I guess a little bit more specific is I would like to see, something happen with the loot in this game. Because yeah, it's kind of a whole can of worms I just opened. But
Yes, you did.
yeah, I've been very, dissatisfied with the state of loot in the past few years. I haven't really gotten excited by loot in a long time. So I think if they can fix that, or improve the desire for existing players to get loot, that would certainly help things.
So you absolutely opened a can of worms. I was planning on saving this topic for another one of these because you said, you have so much time, right? So by the way, do let me know when you're tapped out and you're ready to go.
Okay.
Because I'm just
So
kind
let's
of
just do 20 minutes or something.
20 more minutes. Okay, we can talk loot for about 20 minutes. I'll be able to flesh out my thoughts in a future podcast style thing later.
Okay.
But what are your thoughts on loot? Personally, I find loot to no longer be an incentive, and that's mostly just because we have it all, right? Like, there's not really a reason for me to go out and get new stuff because I have something that is at least as good at home,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my situation is I think that myself and most people who have played this game for, I don't know, let's just say years, like any number of years, if you've played this game regularly for any number of years, you have good loot. It's not the best, probably, but it's good. And anything new that comes out is probably going to be like a 2% upgrade or it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
If it's worse, there's no reason to get it unless it's like an extremely niche use that you want to mess around with, you know, like maybe there's a cool new perk that you want to try out. But you don't, it's not really going to make you better. So you don't really have a huge incentive to go for it. Okay, so that's the one situation. So a new thing comes out, if it's worse than what you have, okay, that's that situation. The other side of things, it's better than what you have. Okay, now we're talking. But there's also two ways that it can go if it's an upgrade for you. It's either a small upgrade for you, in which case it's like, a new hand cannon comes out, it's 2% better than my existing hand cannon. I'm not really super motivated to go for it. I mean, it's nice if I get it, but I'm not going to grind for it for 30 hours, you know? But it could also be a huge upgrade. Say it's a 15% upgrade over my current hand cannon. Okay, well now that's overpowered. And now it's going to get nerfed. So it's like either way, it's like I'm not really like that excited because it's either a weapon that's a marginal upgrade or it's a huge upgrade that I can use for like 2 weeks or a month maybe, and then it gets nerfed. So it's yeah, power creep has gotten to a point where it's a really difficult situation where new loot is just not that exciting. I mean, armor hasn't mattered in centuries, and when it comes to weapons, it's just like, you know, we have 100+ hand cannons. It's like, is number 115 gonna, you know, really change the game? Probably not.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean that's my take on it as a player who hasn't gotten a lot of new loot in the past few years because I'm simply just not super hyped about it.
Don't care. Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. Like, people are always like, "Oh, did you go get the X thing?" I'm like, "No. Why not? Why? Why would I care? Right? Like, unless something is something I don't have access to, as like a great example of something that I don't have access to, it previously hasn't existed before, a primary slot, not ammo, primary slot trace rifle, appetence, and the incisor. The stasis and the strand trace rifle is something I don't have. It's a weapon for a slot I don't have access to. And for me, I feel like that's the real thing that we have to focus on, or rather Bungie. And Bungie's aware of this, right? Bungie knows that we've been
Of
power
course.
craft, right? They're not stupid, right? Crafting is a whole nother topic. We might talk about that. Maybe. We'll see. That's a big can of worms here. But for me, the solution is to expand horizontally, not vertically, right? Offer new ways of accomplishing a task that is fun and unique, that is different than other things. Maybe it's not necessarily better, but it does it in a way that is different. As like a Destiny 2 vanilla example of something like that. It's the difference between subsistence and Firefly. Both of those things kind of accomplish the same goal, which is to kill a lot of small stuff, but they do it in much different ways. Subsistence can work with perks in a much different way. Something like Rampage works with it, whereas Firefly is a much more just generic AoE, right? And I feel like going in that direction is a much smarter way to go about it. And I think that's what Bungie's trying to do. But I also think that you kind of reach a limit. Like, there's only so many ideas that you can realistically have and apply to the game before it just doesn't matter, right? Like, for example, Slice. I love Slice as a perk. You familiar with Slice, Shadow?
I have never even heard of this perk. That's that's how out of
Bro,
touch I am.
he's not a real gamer, chat. Shame this man's. He's not even a real Destiny gamer. Let me fill you in. Ain't no way. Let me fill you in. So what Slice will do is whenever you use your class ability, it will make your weapons sever targets. Sever is a 10% debuff on enemies' outgoing damage. So it's, instead of it being a damage increase to them, it's a damage decrease going from them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And it's very unique. It's not something that we have, right? Slice as an idea both is interacting with a class ability, of which we don't see very often, and instead of it being a debuff in a way that helps us kill the target better, it's a debuff in a way that makes the target kill us worse, right? And I think that's really cool. That is a horizontal way of going about it. It's basically as if we were to take the equation and multiply it by -1, right? The idea of something like, I don't know, Rampage and you multiplied it by -1. It completely flipped it on its head. But because it's exactly opposite, it does what its job is meant to do, but in a different and interesting way. So even if it's not necessarily the best, it's cool and it's fun to play with, and it has strand synergies and stuff, which are nice. So that kind of thing is, I think, the thing that Bungie's going to have to focus on if they're going to try to fix the loot problem, is expanding horizontally, or, and this is the real devious one, we basically not have a full sunsetting experience, but we basically have like what is effectively a sandbox purge. You know, we see a situation where we pull everyone's power back by 25%, you know, and pull us back. And theoretically, sunsetting should have been a good thing. On paper, sunsetting should have been okay, but the way that they decided to go about it was, in my opinion, terrible. Because it would have at least given us some type of reason to go after new loot. And what sunsetting could have been or should have been is maybe a different topic for a different time. But I'm curious what your solution or thoughts are on how to fix a power creep. Also, Geek of the Week, I see your super chat. We will talk about it in just a second. I want to get this thought out here first. What are your thoughts, Shadow?
I really don't think there's an obvious solution that, you know, is going to satisfy everyone, which really sucks. You know, it's it's kind of like a lose-lose in some ways, because, you know, if you do a purge or a sunset or whatever you want to call it, it's like people are going to be mad that their stuff is going away. But
yeah,
if you just expand horizontally, as you put it on the other option, like I don't know. Personally, for me, like you just brought up a perk that I've never heard of, and okay, like I'm still like, that's not moving the needle for me personally. I'm still not motivated even after hearing that awesome description of it. I'm still not feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to get in the game and go do that right now. You know, like I've already got good stuff that can shoot the dudes real good.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
like
that's completely fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and like little self plug, but we run a Discord game. It's a turn-based Discord game on our Discord, obviously. It's got some story. It's got some PvP. It's got like a roguelike PvE similar to Slay the Spire. And I've always wanted to make a game. And what this has done, and I swear this ties back into what we're talking about. What this has done is it's given me some firsthand experience, not on the game dev side of things, but on the game dev to player interaction side of things. Right? And the one thing I can guarantee you want to piss your players off is you nerf them. Even if it's for their own good, even if you know, you're confident in the long term, it is a good thing for the players to have this nerf. Even if it's like a big change that is uncomfortable, you want to piss everybody off, that is the way to do it. It's like asking them to eat their vegetables, right? But at the same time, talking about it from why don't you fix it from the horizontal point of view thing, is the other side of things. Like, rule number 1 of the game dev Bible feels like it should be, if players can optimize the fun out of a game, they will optimize the fun out of a game, right? In your situation, it makes perfect sense. Why would you go out and chase new loot if what you have is already optimal, right? Even if the new perk is more fun, let's say, to use, let's say Slice is just more fun to use for you, let's say, right? If what you have works and it's optimal, or worse than that, better, why would you ever touch it? Right?
Even if it's not optimal, like say Slice is 5% better than what I have, and it's 5% more fun. I mean, I might go get it, but I'm still not super stoked about it. You
Interesting.
know, maybe this is the most pessimistic take I have, but I don't know. I'm just not super excited about the new stuff.
Interesting. All right, let's go through some of these super chats. I'd add a racing circuit for all the speeders we get. Heck, the ship combat and customization, it's not like this isn't room for fine-tuning. Yeah, I would love ship combat. What's your stance on ship combat or SRL, Shadow? I'm curious.
I mean, I think from what we know as a community, it would take significant resources to make such things.
Yeah, for sure. Let's assume Bungie finds a genie and they're able to add it into the game.
Well, sure. if they could just magically add it to the game for fun, it's a no-brainer, you know. Okay. It would be cool to have, you know, a new mode. You know, I think this really dips our toes into the topic of innovation, which is
Yeah.
something that I
Hmm.
think the game really needs because, like, okay, let's look at the last year. We have a, new dungeon, new raid, a returning raid. We've seen all these things before. Like in Forsaken, they added Gambit and dungeons. Like these things were brand new, fresh concepts that were really novel. But we haven't seen anything like that in ages.
Yeah, that's
I
a great
mean,
point.
you could say like the LFG is, a new system that's awesome. 100% agree. But it's like this isn't a new mode. It's, like there hasn't been a new like thing that has come into the game that has been a core part of the game that's really exciting. Because it just, yeah, they haven't made a whole bunch of new concepts. It's just been doing the old concepts.
Yeah,
And
keep playing it
I mean, I
safe.
guess, yeah, from a business point, from a business perspective, no blame there. Like if something's working, you keep doing what's working. It's just, you would be stupid not to. But at the same time, like we need some innovation.
Right. From TK. Transmog needs to be accessible as legendary shard cost instead of silver. This will make fashion the end game. It will not be predatory on the consumer standpoint. I think the push for I think Bungie knows the push for fashion as being the end game is clearly the goal of a lot of players, and it's a place that they can monetize without impacting gameplay, right? Obviously, a lot of us would like it to be something really easy to accessible, right? But at the same time, we got to have something to work towards, and I feel like having something like that to work towards, because we do have ways of getting towards it with the transmog system we have, gives us something to chase after, right? Big fan of grapple. Hell yeah, grapple rocks.
Someone mentioned that was like the most unique thing that we've gotten recently, and yeah,
Legitimately
I was
though.
just,
Yeah.
I was agreeing. Like, yeah, that's a new, like, really different thing that we had not seen. And honestly, I'm so like happy with how Grapple turned out. Like, it easily could have been like glitchy or like overpowered or like really stupid
Yeah,
or like
that's a great point.
just like it wouldn't be useful, But like Grapple's one of the best like coolest abilities we've ever seen.
I
So
agree.
yeah, big fan.
Yep. I wish there was a little bit more depth to it, because like we don't really even have like a swinging mechanic really, like how
Hmm.
Pathfinder does it in Apex, or for my Titanfall fans. No, I understand. Trust me, I know that. I know where it came from. All right, calm down. We don't have like a swinging mechanic like in Titanfall, right? So there's like a certain lack of depth there, but it is brand new. It is completely something, and Bungie knew that when they were doing the advertisements, right? They knew it's like, hey, this is something.
The
they
trailer was
pushed that
so
grapple
good.
hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's bring this back to center a little bit here. Do you think a lack of loot incentive is what's quote unquote killing Destiny, or do you think it's a bigger topic or a bigger idea than that?
I mean, I don't think you can point a finger at any one single thing,
Yeah.
but
Listen,
loot,
I'm trying to be divisive for the views, okay? I'm trying to
yeah.
have toxic opinions, and you're supposed to
Uh,
react with disgust, disdain, unheard of reactions. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah, so anyway, yeah, no, you can't point your finger at one issue and be like, yes, that is the only thing that hurts the game. But I think that loot is a huge part of, what keeps people motivated and enjoying the game and, invested in the grind and the progression. And I feel like, for me as a player, the progression and the loot grind and the excitement has been missing for a while. And personally, I would be a lot more motivated to play the game if there was really exciting loot for me to go get right now, but there isn't. Historically, looking at my playtime, a lot of it is in pursuit of loot. Of course I've played tons of PvP that's just for fun, but a lot of the other activities, it's like if there's a really good piece of loot, like I farm that thing until I get the loot. Like
Yeah.
that type of thing drives so much playtime. Like imagine they just remove all the loot from all the activities tomorrow. It's like the playtime is just gonna fall off a cliff.
Yeah, absolutely.
People play activities, and especially play activities repeatedly in order to get loot. And when the loot is not as exciting as it used to be, understandably, people don't have the interest that they used to have.
Yep. I'm gonna come out here with a hot take, but this seems to be an unpopular opinion. But and I'm not necessarily saying that this is what you're saying here, but I think that Loot should be the secondary reason for playing an activity. I think that
Mm.
enjoying the activity should be the first reason to play the activity. And oftentimes when I get on my PvE grinders, when I ask them, and I'll ask you, if let's say the loot incentive for a raid or whatever was gone, would you play it? Legitimately, would you play a raid if there was no loot drops whatsoever? Would you still play it, even if it was a like let's take one that we already have. Let's take like what's everyone's favorite raid? Chat, what's everyone's favorite raid? Help me out here. What's a raid a lot of people really really like to run? Saying dear God, no. I'd play Deepstone for the music. Yes, Vogue is hella fun. What about you, Shadow? If there was no loot incentive, would you raid?
I would, but probably less. And I think that's probably the case for most people. Like everyone wants to play the raid, but I feel like if there's, a really amazing piece of loot, you're probably going to play it more than if there was not.
Mm-hmm.
And also kind of to follow up on your fun versus loot being the main motivator, I don't think I mean, I think you can have fun even if you are motivated from loot, like fun the loot can be the reason why your group comes together to do something, and then you can have fun, I
Sure.
think, like, say you and your friends all get together to do Vogue because you want Vex, and you have a great time running it. But if Vex didn't exist, would you still have created that group? Like, you probably would have still done the raid, but would you have done it that day, like,
Yeah,
maybe
it
not.
definitely adds to it, right? But like,
Yeah,
okay, let's just put it this way: you don't play Crucible for the loot, or at least not much anymore.
most of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time. Like if you're put it this way, if you're playing 6v6, you ain't playing for the loot.
Right.
But you do it because you enjoy the activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I see a lot of the times, and if your opinion through everybody in chat, if your opinion is yes, I would still do X thing if there was no loot, that is great. And I feel like that is the correct mindset to have, because that means that you enjoy the activity and it's not a job, right? And I see that happen so often. I'll see people just they'll get done with, let's say, like a Grandmaster Nightfall or Legendary Lost Sector farming or whatever it may be, right? And I get it, dude. I have every single Legendary Lost Sector thing, mostly because I need it in order to, be a good content creator, right? I get it, but I feel like there's the mindset that goes into it. It feels like mismatched. Like you should want to do the thing first, and rather you should be asking Bungie, hey, can we make Legendary Lost Sectors more enjoyable? If you hate, let's say, Legendary Lost Sectors, but you're only doing it for the loot. Yeah, Legendary Lost Sectors are a literal chore. Yeah, like, and it's frustrating to me that we've kind of like gotten to this place. I guess this is more kind of what I'm attacking as a whole, Shadow, is that it frustrates me that we've gotten to this place where loot is the primary incentive for a good portion of the activities we don't want to do, right? And I
Mm.
feel like rather than having the discussion of, hey, can we fix Legendary Lost Sectors to be more fun? Or, hey, can we make these drop from places that are more enjoyable? Instead, the discussion is, can we increase the drop rates on Legendary Lost Sectors? You see what I'm saying, right? As instead of saying make the activity more enjoyable, it's make the loot more obtainable, right? And I get why they're saying make the loot more attainable, because they don't want to do the activity.
Make me
No?
have to do this unfun thing less is what people are saying, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, no point into Legendary Lost Sectors. It's 90% never getting loot. Yeah. Legendary Lost Sectors made me question my existence for real. Yeah, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Exactly, TKG. Exactly. Intrinsic motivation is doing the thing because you want to do it. Extrinsic motivation is doing the thing because you're being told. Extrinsic motivation is a job. Intrinsic motivation is a hobby, right? I play, I don't know, Call of Duty because I like playing Call of Duty. I go to work at McDonald's because they're paying me. There's the difference, right? And unless you're SpongeBob, you're not going to your 9 to 5 flipping burgers and enjoying it, right? And that's the thing that frustrates me, is I feel like that mindset has really seeped in and really gotten a stronghold in the Destiny space. And I get it, it's an MMO, right? You need to have loot grind and such, and it does feel more rewarding if you've worked for it. But can't we also make working for it still enjoyable? Like, do you remember the last word quest? Did you do the last word mission?
I did.
Did you like that mission?
Um, It was such a long time ago, and I only did it once, so it's hard to remember. But not particularly.
Interesting. I liked the very last mission where you had to do like the quick draw thing. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, you had to shoot the three things in fast succession, or you lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of hard actually. I failed it so many
Exactly.
times.
Exactly. It was hard. It was hard,
Yeah.
but you remember it, right?
Yeah, no, I remember that section. I don't remember the whole, like, I thought you were talking about the entire quest,
No,
like all the steps, but that mission I do remember for sure.
exactly. Yep. And that is that right there is my point. Right there was my point, is that you remember that particular step, even though every other step was boring as hell, and you don't remember it. Neither do I. But that
Okay.
last mission was memorable, even though it was very hard. And yeah, you were incentivized by loot, but like I would do it again just to see if I could do it or if I could get better at it. I'd want to give it a shot, right? I'd be incentivized just because of the difficulty and how unique it was and the challenge that was there, just to give it a shot, even if it's not something that's I'm gonna do all the time. But every now and then, maybe I get bored, or no friends are on, right? And like that's my frustration with the direction that the community as a whole has been going towards, is rather than, not to say that it's not present, because many people have brought this up, but I feel like that is like the pinnacle, is like demand activities that are enjoyable to do, not necessarily activities that are easy to farm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely both in a lot of
For
ways,
sure.
right? Like in a perfect world, there's an activity that has good loot and it's super fun. And then therefore you can run it for either or both reasons, and that's when the game's at its best. If something
Yes.
is fun and rewarding, it's an absolute slam dunk win, you know?
Yeah.
If either one of those things are missing, then we start to falter a little bit.
Yeah. And obviously they're not going to get it right every single time, right? We're still humans at the end of the day. Game dev is hard, and getting something just right is difficult, right? But anyway, you probably need to get going, yeah?
Yep.
All right. Well, Shadow, thank you so much for joining me today. And chat, thank you so much for showing up. I know that this is a little bit on the shorter end here, but, obviously we get to pick Shadow's brain, and he's a fantastic guest. We're hoping to bring him back for many, many, many times to come. But that's for a future date, right? Something to focus on at a later date. Do you have anything that you want to promote? Any other thoughts or anything you want to close out with?
Go to my YouTube channel. My next video is going to be 2 hours long.
Holy cow. Yeah, you definitely do the longer uploads. Yeah, Shadow's got some great stuff, fantastic stuff. And even if you don't play Destiny, I think you'll really enjoy his stuff. So make sure you are subscribed. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
In the meantime, guys, bless your faces and deuces.